Peace, this is Joseph L. Brim. Some of y'all know me as Jojo Brim. Check out my interview on ADTV, Industry Stakeholders. Peace.
First of all, I'll say good afternoon, Mr. Brim.
Good afternoon, good afternoon.
First and foremost, I want to say we're privileged to have Jojo Brim. If you would like to introduce who you are to our audience, if they don't already know.
My name is Joseph L. Brim, also known as Jojo Brim. I am a senior manager at KWL Enterprises, management and entertainment company started by my mentor, friend, boss, Kevin Lyles. I'm also I started in this business as a creative person, as an artist, and really made my name as an A&R person. I also do the A&R at KWL. We manage Trey Songz, Big Sean, Young Jeezy, Mike Posner, Asia Sparks, Nelly, Sandra Richards Ross, who's an Olympian gold medalist. So, you know, Estelle and Jalil Beats. We have a growing roster of talent there.
You said you started off as a creative. How does someone from the creative get to really integrate into the business end?
I've always been business minded. I like to think of myself as a creative business person. You know, I think the reason why Kevin and I work so well together is because Kevin wants to own the studio. I want to make the movies. You know, so it's a different come from. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, someone said to me one time, "Well, why don't you want to own the studio? You want to, you know, you should want to own it. For what?" You know, understand. I always believe that knowing why I'm here on the planet and what I'm here to do on the planet is keeps me grounded and focused, and makes my job a lot easier. I don't get caught up in what I should be doing by other people's standards. So to answer your question, you know, those are the things that kind of are the foundation for why I was able to go from being a recording artist to being a producer to being an A&R to being the manager.
I think at every level it gives you a greater perspective of what's required. You know, like you have a musical ear, you understand the artist's needs. In terms of the A&R aspect, what is it that you look for if you know those times that you're doing A&R, and what were you looking for in an artist? Because a lot of time artists aren't really sure what they should be showcasing more of. Is it their look, their personality, their sound? What were you looking for when you were an A&R?
The truth. You know, the truth is, you know, the truth is, it's not hard to find. And when I say truth, meaning someone that's coming from a place that's authentic and honest and congruent with who they are. So, you know, I always look for that. I always looked for someone that was really standing in their truth. And then once I identify that, you know, what's missing in the marketplace too, musically, what's not there. So what is the contribution that we're making? I think that as an A&R person, it's not about me. You understand? So many A&R people nowadays, my experience at least, of some of the A&R people that are out there, that is about them. And it's not about the artist. You know, the A&R is at the award show with the glasses on and
Instagram and the pictures.
Yeah. And never, you know, been hot and never broke an artist. And they, you know, trying to tell the artist how to be. So for me, I never really cared about being hotter than the artist. Just wasn't really my thing, you know. And I've always had an artistic side about my nature and how I carry myself, but that's what's just been true for me. So I just think that, I say all of that to say that, you know, as an A&R person, you know, it's almost like you got to be invisible in the process.
So you're a manager. What do you define? You know, because I think you, like saying, you go by your own standards and your own beliefs. So what do you define your own role as being a manager? What would you say it is?
To provide my clients with the best resources to support them in being the best artist, producer, or actor that they can be. Simple.
And with that though, what are the difficulties in being a manager? Whether it's like being away from home a lot or being on the road, you know, what do you find of it? If there is any,
you know, it's funny that I'm sitting here writing a piece. Got a car that's moving us around and staying at a nice hotel. There's nothing hard about that. There's nothing difficult about it. You know, the man that's out here working 15, 20 hours to put a meal on his kid's table is working hard. You know, the woman that's raising her children and going to work at night and still being a wife. You know, that would be quote unquote hard. And listen, to them that might not even be hard. It's all relative. You know, are there moments, human moments, when, you know, I want to go home to my family? Of course. You know, my son who's swimming now, my, you know, daughter who is acting, you know, my other daughter who's starting her own business, you know, my oldest daughter, my granddaughter. So yeah, there's moments that I want to be home, but don't get it twisted. You know, and there's moments when there's stress, and there's moments there are those moments, but I quickly remind myself, you know, that this month I've been in 5 countries doing something that I love. So I try not to get caught up in what's so hard about being a manager.
It seems like you can put it in perspective. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So before all of this, you know, what kind of environment did you grow up in? You know, what was your kind of background?
I was born in the Bronx, raised Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon is a suburb right outside of the city, but literally connected to the Bronx in the sense that I could go right there, and the Bronx is there. Mount Vernon's 4 square miles, and in those 4 miles there was a movement in the mid-'80s that was really started by DJ Eddie F and Heavy D. And you know, I come from a I wouldn't say we were impoverished, but you know, we were lower middle class people. Most of my upbringing, my mother was in school. She went to Columbia University, and she was going there and raising us. And my stepfather was in medical school. You know, so you know, we weren't the poorest people, but you know, we weren't the richest people. We weren't even probably middle class in hindsight. We were getting by. My parents were doing everything that they could to keep a roof and then some over our head. And I think that is what really kept me grounded and really kept me committed to standing in my dream and working for it and putting in the time to do it. And when you know, Heavy D got on, that changed everything for us in Mount Vernon. And you know, I owe it to people like Eddie F and Heavy D that really, really, literally paved the way, and I'll be sure really paved the way for someone like me to be able to get into this business. And you know, that's the mid '80s. You know, it was hip hop was, you know, a baby still. You know, and it was a good magical moment in time. You know, sometimes I wish I could just go back and relive it. You know, it was just such a magical time. Young African American people on the precipice of doing something great that created the culture that we're in now.
A worldwide culture now.
Yeah, amazing.
The Bronx, those times, it was rough though. You know, I know Autumn Rowe, she grew up in I think Brooklyn or the Bronx, and she was saying that in the 80s it was tough. You know, there was a lot of crack and, you know, the streets.
Oh, it was all of that. It was crack. Yeah. My mother was smart. We were in the Bronx and she saw the crack epidemic and she moved us to Mount Vernon. Now, was there crack in Mount Vernon and all that? Oh yeah. But she moved us out of that element quickly.
She spotted the danger.
You know, and those roots though I carry with me to this day. You understand? So it was a rough time socially, because during that time, you know, people of color were still, you know, chipping away at the American dream. You had people that, you know, were starting to break through, and, you know, people that were, there was a handful of people, and it definitely wasn't people that looked like us skin tone wise, but they didn't look like us culturally. You understand? So it was tough in that sense, because here you have an epidemic like crack upon us. You know, AIDS is starting to, you know, these things coming in. And then, you know, you have, it's really becoming it's reaching a boiling point. The pot is boiling. And, you know, but from that, again, what you see now in America and in hip hop culture was born from that, you know. So being born and growing up in that contrast, right? It was a contrast environment, you know. Here we are wanting to live in abundance, want to have these, we had these dreams, these goals, these visions, but we were, you know, born into circumstances that where contrast was abound. You know, it's like, here we are, I believe we're born with all that we need, right? God doesn't create junk, but then we're born with this, we're born with unlimited possibilities, infinite possibility, and then our surroundings represent is in direct contrast to that, right? So here you are brought up in that, but knowing, at least my belief, is that I'm an infinite being, full of unlimited possibilities, but around me there's such restriction, right? So I'm just giving you the mindset that's going on. So when people talk about it's hard, I try to put it into context. People in the streets of Africa, that's hard, right? That don't have water, or anywhere in the world, not just Africa. So that's what that's the context in which we were living. You understand? So we're like 9 years old. People strung out on crack.
At that age.
Yeah. You know, we're watching people from that age. So I say all of that to say that, you know, again, that era is what made what we are today. It was part of what made it. So yeah, it was difficult in that sense. But make no mistake, you know, we were launching rockets of desire while we were living in that contrast. We wanted the money. We wanted the houses. We wanted the fame. We wanted the accomplishments. So those rockets of desire were launched while we were living in that contrasting circumstance. And now we have matched that desire in a lot of ways.
One thing I wanted to pick up on that is, I've always felt that, you know, being able to sit down with people from America and the UK, the hustle's different. You know, I know there's times where, you know, Trey may have to do long, you know, promo schedules, and he's always working. Like, you can see the drive and the determination. And you just said, like, you know, your background is kind of like shapes you. But when you get to a certain point, you know, how do you keep motivating yourself? How do you keep on readjusting your goals? Because the first thing may be to get the house, the car, some form of financial security. How do you know not to, like, think, hey, we done? How do you keep on motivating? Because I think that part can be difficult for some people to stay motivated.
There's always more. It's not rocket science. There's always more. You know, for us, I can't speak for everybody else, but for us at KWL, at TSP, you know, all our clients, there's always more that we want to accomplish. We keep launching rockets of desire. You know, that's just life. You know, we're gonna keep launching those rockets of desire. It'll be something else. You know, so that's what keeps us motivated. The material thing, you know, from a material standpoint, yeah, how many cars can you get? How many watches can you get? Of course, you know, that can top off for some people. But in terms of accomplishments and goals, you know, I think as long as we continue to launch those rockets of desire, we will always have something to go meet. You know, we did 3 nights at the Hammersmith. Let's go for 5. You know, so that keeps us motivated. You know, that there's always new desires being born in us.
For you personally, what's your next goal?
I will probably work in some sort of capacity with different countries around the world from an ambassador standpoint. A peace ambassador. That's my ultimate goal, to be a peace ambassador to various nations on the planet. I think that peace is wanted and needed. I think it's the key to us surviving on the planet. And it's time. You know, back in the States, there's a movement started by Marianne Williamson and a couple other people. Marianne's a really big author, and it's called the Peace Alliance, which I'm part of that movement. And we're lobbying for a government level Department of Peace, just like there's a Department of Defense. Why isn't there a Department of Peace? You know, peace is not to be confused with being passive. It's not to be confused with, you know, letting people that commit crimes off the hook. It's not any of that. But peace is a mindset. Peace as a skill set. You know, peace as an option is what we envision. So that, you know, ultimately, that's, before I leave the planet, that's what I will have done.
you know, you seem like something you always try to put out a positive energy, but you're trying to readdress some of the negative things in the world. When you go into business, is it difficult, you know, is there ever, well, it must be, but as a manager, how do you protect your artist's best interest as well as working in tandem with a label? Because there always seems to be like competing forces or agendas or motivations, label versus artist. But as a manager being in the middle, how do you, you know, work with both parties and make sure everything is running smoothly?
Win-win. It's a win-win scenario. It's definitely not about the manager versus the label or the artist versus the label. That mentality is not going to get the results that someone may want. It's about win-win. That's the only option, is how do we create a win-win. That's first and foremost. And I think operating inside that context gets us where we need, for our clients. It's all about a win-win scenario.
So moving into when you first, because I was reading up, when you first were going to start to manage Trey, I think you went, was it, what's that place in New York? You went to go see him in
Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden. And you were already a fan of his music. When you saw him at that level, what did you think as a manager, gonna do to take him to the next level? What did you see as?
Well, I was already familiar with him, so I went to that show in particular because I wanted to see him inside that setting. You know, I think with Trey Songz, he represents R&B music. He represents the experience of so many African American men. He represents he has the black experience in his DNA. You know, he carries the spirit of the Marvins and the Smokies, and he's energetically connected to that. Just even if he wasn't a big superstar, if I just met him, you know, if I would have met him when he was 12, I would have probably felt the same thing. He just carries that energy, literally. So, you know, what Kevin said, you know, Kevin and I were at Warner Music Group. I was an executive A&R to his office and to the music group. You know, we didn't want to do management. That wasn't on our foreseeable future. So I say that to say you know, Trey, when Kevin said we're getting up out of here, we're gonna do this, Trey was ideal because, you know, he represents so much that Kevin and I are about. So to answer your question, to take him to the next level, really crystallizing the vision, tightening up business-wise, putting him inside of different conversations, putting the name Trey Songz inside of different conversations, you know, that he might not have been in unless Kevin was running the ship. So that's, I think, what Kev's, you know, and I, what our vision was to really support Trey in crystallizing his vision, and then look for opportunities that matched his vision. And, you know, of course, having hit records helps.
Definitely. I mean, I saw that in the show when you guys were brokering a deal for his touring and even doing a thing with the Rock Nation ads, and, you know, it's like you guys were, like you're saying, putting him into the conversation with other people. So for him, where do you see him going now? Because he's a global star. Everyone knows his name. And
there's more work to do. So I see him doing more work. You know, continuing to build his legacy, continuing to build a robust fan base that is global. Acting, just had a #1 movie with Texas Chainsaw.
Congratulations.
So, you know, I see him, you know, as much as I see him as, you know, with the legacy, I'm part of that energy of Marvin and Smokey. There's a part of him that is definitely Will Smith, you know, Marky Mark. He's got that thing with him. A lot of people don't know. It's very funny young man. I think he's gonna be I think he's gonna be a really big movie star. You know, which would probably put him on the level of like a Frank Sinatra. Like in that way. Frank Sinatra was the man.
He had that thing. He was the man's man as well. And
he was an actor. He was a movie star. He was a big, huge singer, and he was a man.
Yeah.
You know, he was that guy. You know, a little bit of a gangster persona. You know, so I think Trey has that potential.
Before we started, we were talking about some of the other things you do. You know, like you help mentor people. You get them. You know. You enlighten them on certain things. For upcoming managers, you know, who are trying to get into the industry, what advice would you give them? What things should they be aware of? You know, whether it's, you know, make sure you have a contract with different accountants. What things do you think they need to have in place?
Have a solid contract. Have a team of people that are willing to do the things that you don't have the time to do. Definitely have a great business manager. And set yourself up to do smart business by having those people. Pay the extra 2% for someone to keep your books, or pay the extra $200 to have the better lawyer. And, you know, say what you mean what you say, and operate with rigor and discipline, but also balance that with being flexible and understanding that your clients are often just need an ear. That's what I would advise anybody wanting to get in, and understand the lane that you're getting into. Understand the management business. You know, read about it, learn about it. You know, and know that it's about your clients. It's not about you.